Oh my god, guys, we have finally made it up to Rise of the Beasts. Fuck yes! I'm so excited. Was it a great movie? Yeah, actually it was. I'm going to start off this review by talking about Pete Davidson in this movie, who plays Mirage. Can I just say that Mirage in this movie is the life and blood and soul of this movie. We all kind of knew this going into the movie because that's how they marketed the movie, as a Transformers movie that heavily focused on Mirage. Had it been anyone else, this role would have fallen through and wouldn't have been as entertaining as it was in this movie. So yes, Pete Davidson did pull it off with ease in this movie. That's just my opinion on it, though. I've heard some negative criticism about the movie, that it's, doesn't really hit the mark, and I can see some people saying that, and I can see where they're coming from, but for me personally, Pete Davidson was one of the best parts of this movie. A lot of that also has to do with the fact that the Transformers, or specifically the Autobots in this movie, are given a lot more character this time around than literally any of the other films beforehand. Like, Bumblebee was the first movie that really took it in that direction where, the Transformers were being treated as characters and not robots to smash and punch things. This movie definitely sees its Autobots, or its, robot characters, as characters. I mean, one of the more memorable lines out of the G1 cartoon is when Spike Witwicky is sitting there, writing in his notebook, and he mentions how they're robots with feelings and emotions. I'm paraphrasing, but basically that's what he was saying, and ever since then, that sentence has stuck with me, and I've looked for that in whatever form of Transformers media, like a show or a movie, and this specific one definitely treats them as characters, which is much appreciated, and a long time coming, to be honest. And speaking of arcs, Optimus Prime does have a really compelling, I guess, and really investing arc in this movie. I won't say what it is, but he's given great motivation to be in this movie, and also to butt heads with our protagonist, Noah. I mean, I guess Noah and Mirage are both protagonists. They're co-protagonists. Another thing that I really loved in this movie is the action. It's head to toe, like, it's all wides for the most part whenever there's, Autobot versus Terrorcon action. I mean, the first action scene in this movie that takes place at a museum, I think, is one of the most exciting action scenes in this movie. They are going all out with the action in this movie and showing you everything. It's almost as if they were experimenting with the first few Transformers movies, and then Michael Bay just gave up by the end. And with this movie, they've learnt from all those mistakes in the Bay movies, and now they know how to film it better. Also, on the topic of the action, I love that it continues on what the Bay movies did, which is just keeping it very hyper-violence. Think of it like a John Wick film, but for a Transformers movie, and the way the robots or Terrorcons get destroyed and killed in this movie is, like, imagine it, but as a human. It'd be pretty bloody and freaking gory. Now, I do want to get into some of my negatives for this movie. The first of them being that the first and second act was really compelling and investing. Some of the best Transformers media I've seen since, I guess, Transformers Prime. If we're comparing it to, like, the best Transformers, even Transformers Dark of the Moon, it was really compelling and interesting. I was really getting invested into Noah in this movie. What I noticed is that I was actually wanting to stick with them a bit more. Noah and his brother, I was wanting to stick with their story a bit longer instead of cutting back to the Transformers, which is very strange. That has never happened before, because usually in these movies you're like, can we get to the Transformers action already? Yeah, not for this one. But when it got to the third act, I don't know, for some reason it just became quite predictable. And just so you know, I did happen to see this with my partner and her sister, who are from Peru, if you didn't, get that in my trailer reaction. And even they were like, the end was not as good as the beginning, and I will agree with that. It's not. The third act kind of trickles off, and it wasn't as interesting. I mean, it's balls to the wall action, but it wasn't as investing as the rest of the movie leading up to it. Also, the villain, Scourge, was a good villain. In fact, he had a great intro scene with a chilling theme that came along with it at the very beginning of the movie, but he too kind of trickled off. Like, I don't know, for some reason, I thought we were going to get more of the villain, but we didn't get that much. We got one scene sort of showing how he is working with Unicron, because Unicron is in this movie, if you didn't know that. Now, for this next thing, I don't know if this is going to be technically a negative, but I'm just going to come out and say it. In regards to the Maximals, I personally never grew up with Beast Wars, the Transformers show focusing on the Maximals. I never really watched it. Like, I remember the first episode, but that's about it. I remember the intro of Beast Wars, which is a very iconic intro, but beyond that, I don't really know anything about Beast Wars. So going into this movie, I was not super excited to see the Maximals, as I'm sure most people were. I just wasn't one of them. Anyway, that's my review for Transformers Rise of the Beasts. Hopefully I didn't drone on for too long, and I wasn't too negative, because let me just say this. Out of all of the Transformers movies that I've reviewed so far, Transformers Dark of the Moon is still my favourite. Below that would then be this one, and then Bumblebee. This movie definitely did not disappoint, and I have to say, I can't wait to watch it on Blu-ray. Oh my god, I can't wait to watch it again. Please do keep an eye out for my spoiler review, because there are some things I really want to talk about concerning this movie that are heavy spoilers. So keep an eye out for that video. I'll see you in that video. I'm going to start off this review by saying, there's dust in there, and I've looked for that. Oh fuck. Hopefully you just understood what I just. Fuck me dead. What's his name? Pete Davidson. Can't remember Haley Steinfeld's name. Can't remember Pete Davidson's name.